Hello, and welcome back to the Lost and Found podcast, the place where we figure things out in real time together. I'm your host, Carmen Vit, and today's episode is going to be special. It's going to be something different. I went for a long walk this afternoon in a city forest, I think they call it here in Delhi, and it was so lovely just getting outside of the hustle and bustle of the city and feeling my mind stretch open, feeling all this space. And I was walking in this forested area and I was listening to that New Yorker podcast where they read their short stories. And it was such a beautiful experience just walking in nature, listening to a short story. I could just feel my nervous system relaxing. And on my way back, I got a motorcycle Uber, so one of the little scooters, and I got on the back of the scooter. And as we're weaving through the traffic, it just starts pouring rain. And even now, I'm sitting in this tiny little apartment with these big floor to ceiling windows, and the monsoon outside is just raging, and I'm feeling very cozy. I'm having chai, and I thought that it would be a really nice time to read to you one of my favorite short stories that I've ever written. Something from my heart. And it's not advice, it's not me rambling on about some topic, it's just me sharing what I love most, my writing. And I think that because this is a podcast about figuring out our 20s, one of the ways that I figure out my 20s and just life in general is writing. So I think that would be special to share a short story with you. Now, I wrote this particular short story back when I just turned 22. I was on a semester exchange in the US in North Carolina. Most of it was written on the train or on a Greyhound bus or waiting for a Greyhound bus. And it's just a story that I wrote while in transit and in a very interesting, new, vulnerable, exciting time in my life because it was really the first time that I was on one big solo adventure for such a long time. For those of you who've maybe read my book or read some blog posts, you'll know that this semester exchange to the US for me was something that I wanted to do so that I could travel. Yes, I loved studying. I loved being able to actually attend a university in the US, but I specifically chose my classes so that I had every Monday and Friday off. So every single weekend, I would literally hop on a Greyhound and go to all these different places in the US with like an uncharged phone and a paperback and my journal, and I would just be writing. And that was for me the first experience of kind of backpacking because I would go everywhere with my backpack and kind of figuring things out by myself. So it was such a formative time for me. And it was in that time that I wrote this short story. So you'll see a lot of North Carolina, a lot of the places that I've been to in this short story. I hope it resonates. Grab something warm or pour yourself a glass of wine. I hope you're listening to this while doing something cozy. Maybe you're on a walk in nature, you're in a forest somewhere, or you are cooking yourself something nice. I hope you're listening to it over the weekend while you're relaxed or laying in the bath and you lit a candle and some incense. This is a story for you. Without further ado, I'm going to read to you my story, and it's called Where the Women Go. It was a Thursday in late autumn when I found the box. A simple cardboard box, not much bigger than my hand. 2 days before, I took the Amtrak from North Carolina to D.C. Outside, Virginia sped by in a blur of autumn colors. Greens turned golden to carroty orange. Here and there I caught a glimpse of a small town or a lake. Trains are fascinating places, moving liminal spaces where glimpses of lives converge and collide. The blue house on the corner, fights whispered over the phone on another seat, churches with broken windows, hikers and forests and backyards. So many places for girls to disappear. Forests weren't always a symbol of death. As a girl, dark spaces were my imaginary refuge. I could play in the woods for hours, sit in closets, or on family vacations, venture out onto the beach in the middle of the night, watching the inky blackness of the waves lap the shore. I've had this recurring dream ever since I was 5 or 6 years old. A forest, green and damp. There's a clearing nestled between pine trees and western hemlocks, big leaf maples and red alders. A path winds through the forest, each turn hiding behind vegetation and mist. At night, I sit on the banks of a stream listening to the rush of water over rocks. I can hear birds, crickets, the trees breathing. The night sky emerges as a cross-stitched tapestry of stars behind an upward tangle of branches. It's not sinister, like the forest in my waking imagination, the one with the police tape and reporters. No, it is peaceful, somehow, like a coming home to a familiar memory. After my sister died, she would sometimes join me in the forest, counting the stars till whatever dream stuff in me made the world blurry and the sky flutter open to my bedroom ceiling. The idea of returning to my childhood home made heat rise to my palms. My skin felt sticky and tight as I sat in C22B, breath shallow. That's been a recurring theme for me lately, the shortness of breath. I inhale, but it's as if the air is sapped of oxygen. My chest becomes tighter until my ribs feel like a coffin and I'm buried alive. When this happens, Dr. Lee said I must close my eyes and imagine I'm in a forest, someplace calming. She also said I shouldn't be leaving the hospital or the oxygen machine in the first place. Obviously, she's never been a dying woman with unfinished business. At my age, the pull towards the past can be a visceral thing, especially if you spend your youth running from it and your adult life writing around it. At some point, you find yourself immobile in a hospital bed with nothing to do but face the memories. No publisher's deadlines to meet, no conversations with spouses to distract you. Jonah and I never had children, so when he passed away last year, I really only had Dr. Lee left. She is caring and invested, but too busy a woman to deal with my infamous Kavanaugh stubbornness. The diagnosis was quickly followed by the letter. I had no choice but to sign the medical release documents and book a one-way train ticket to DC. Apparently, a flight would have reduced the meager 3 weeks I have left to 3 hours. I didn't know what I was about to find in my childhood home. The house hadn't been lived in for decades. After Colette's body was found, my parents packed us up and moved us to Greensboro. My father, once respected widely as Senator James Kavanaugh, left politics in D.C. behind for a quiet life chopping wood in the back garden of a North Carolina farmhouse. With each year that passed, my mother and I watched him dwindle away until he was only whiskey and pale blue skin. We never talked about my sister or the life we left behind. I remember thinking that they ran. They were running from the memories of her in that house, on those carpeted stairs, in that lawn. For me, it just felt like losing her all over again. After my parents' death, it was a shock to find out that they kept the house, and like a genetic disease or dirty family secret, passed it down to me. I went back many times in my 20s, a few times in my 40s, in my 50s only once. But I never made it past the front door. This time would be different. Last week, after Dr. Lee came into my hospital room to tell me the news, I received a handwritten letter in the mail. Imagine that. An envelope with ink and an actual stamp. I didn't even know you could send those anymore. The envelope felt thin and worn under my fingers. The blue ink had become faded. I read, then read again. The letter was addressed to my house in Greensboro. My name was scrawled on the front in loopy letters, formed with a soft and familiar hand. Go back home, Elle. It's waiting for you in our room. One line. No signature. Disbelief mixing with hope. The weight of 30 years of longing crushing my chest. The letter was from Colette. I had no doubt about it. Did it get lost in the mail for over 3 decades? then why did it have that day's date, 9/13/22, and my current address, 922 Granville Road, Old Irving Park, Greensboro? All I knew was that I had to go back to the house on Belmont Road, the red brick, white pillar, ivy-covered one, and find whatever Colette had left me. It was early evening by the time the train pulled up to Union Station. Crowds writhed beneath the imposing arches of the main entrance. My gaze caught the figures in shadowy corners with tattered backpacks and unshaven faces. I was waiting for someone to run up to me and tell me it was all a cruel joke. The letter, the diagnosis, all of it. But of course that didn't happen. After a hazy 17 minutes of watching Capitol Hill and various Smithsonians speed by, my Uber turned into the cul-de-sac that led to 922 Belmont Road. I had forgotten how beautiful DC was, how much I loved our neighborhood before it became flooded with journalists and police cars. Bathed in the light of the lamppost and early evening glow, the house felt ethereal. For a moment it seemed that the door was already ajar, but stepping closer, I realized it must only have been a trick of the shadows. I held my breath as I turned the key in the lock. I've done this many times before. The door creaked open. Hinges stretching. Again, not unfamiliar. But then I was faced with the gaping darkness. 1 foot hovering over the threshold. At this point, something would usually trigger me. I would hear her laughter coming from upstairs, the kettle boiling, little feet playing hopscotch in the street, and I would flee, lock the door, turn around, get on the next train back. Not this time, though. No sounds were coming from inside the house. I could only feel the soft thrum of her letter in my purse, urging me inside. I slept in the living room for 2 days before I had the courage to venture upstairs. In the evenings, I dreamt of a forest, a clearing nestled between pine trees and western hemlocks, a path winding through vegetation and mist, but never reaching a destination. In the mornings, I dusted and attempted to clean the spaces I felt safe venturing into. I left my medication untouched on the kitchen table, relishing in the knowledge that I could die any minute, and nobody would find me or even care. It felt like that dizzying brand of loneliness one encounters for the first time in your 20s, the kind so easily mistaken for freedom. Allowing myself to indulge in unfettered reminiscing, I spent hours drinking coffee on the veranda and staring at the untamed space that was once my mother's garden. On the 22nd of September, I gathered all of myself, my time-worn bones, longing and anxiety, and I walked up those stairs. I had to take it slowly. Every step felt like a blow to my lungs. I clung to the dusty railing as if it was a lifeline. By the time I reached the second floor, I might as well have run a marathon. Going into our old room was like falling back in time. She was everywhere all at once, and nowhere at all. Lionel Richie and Whitney Houston posters were peeling off the walls. An open jewelry box lay abandoned on the dresser, a golden chain necklace tossed to the side, as if flighty young fingers had just taken it off after a night out. I still remember the things they printed about her, how she was always going out, the wild child of a hotshot Republican, never careful, that perhaps her lust for life had finally caught up to her. I moved through the room with my whole body, eyes and hands touching everything I could, wanting to imbibe the room and all that was left of her. I opened the closet and pushed her dresses to my nose, searching for the soft lavender of her perfume, but finding only the foggy scent of mold and trapped memories. It was there that I finally saw it, at the back of the closet, hidden behind winter coats. I'd never seen that box before. Maybe it was always there. But looking back now, maybe not. Inside was a small tape recorder. It dated from the 1980s, around the time she died. Strange I couldn't remember her ever showing me this. My breath caught in my throat when I saw the letters scrawled on the inside of the top lid. For Elle, when you're ready. I went to sit on the floor of our closet, closing the door and letting everything plunge into darkness like we did when we were kids dreaming up fantasy worlds. Shakily, I pressed play. At first, the only noise I could hear was static. It filled the small space. I closed my eyes, leaned my head against the inside of the closet door, and waited. Then I heard it. Breathing. Underneath the sounds of time-worn technology, there it was, reaching through. Inhale. Exhale. I strained my ears, tried to block out the static. Inhale. Exhale. It wasn't human, I realized. It was trees. Wind blowing through a forest. Leaves rustling. Birds, crickets. And emerging from within all these sounds was water rushing over rocks. The static faded away until all I could hear was nature. The sounds enveloped me like a blanket. Behind my closed eyelids, I started to see green until my body felt light and warm. Elle, you're here, a voice whispered. Adrenaline coursed through my veins, making my heart jump in my chest. My eyes flew open. For a second, disbelief left me utterly mute. There she was, her cheeks red and eyes a glinting mahogany. My sister stood before me, hair wild and face aglow with joy. Colette? I sputtered. Time stilled. All I could do was look at her face. I was trying to convince myself that she was really there. Finally, I asked, You're naked. She laughed, holding a hand out to me. Here, let me help you up. Only then did I realize I was sitting against a tree. I hesitated before I touched her, but when our fingers met, I knew she was real. The moment I stood on my own 2 feet, she threw her arms around my neck and kissed me on the cheek. I could feel the skin of her entire body against mine, soft and warm. But how? I looked down, only to find that I was naked too. And young. I stepped back from Colette, lifted my arms, pinched my stomach, and ran my hands over my thighs. I couldn't have been older than 20. My mind was buzzing with questions, but before I could even open my mouth, Colette said, You're home. She smiled at me with a wisdom that did not fit her ageless face. Her eyes seemed to carry the soft knowing of a mother, even though she looked just as youthful as the last time I saw her. Nothing made sense. No, I was just home. This is not. For the first time, I focused on my surroundings. A forest. My gaze skirted over the large pine trees and big leaf maples, western hemlocks and red alders. A peculiar familiarity stirred in me. This is Eden, Colette said gently. And they call me Cove. She took my hand and started walking towards a path amid the trees, the exact path I had dreamt of since I was a child. The same forest, the same sounds. We walked for a long time, it seemed, until the light grew soft and eventually faded. When night fell, Colette finally slowed. We reached a turn in the path. A few more steps revealed a circular clearing bathed in silver, a full moon peeking out from the tip of a mountain, and more people, naked bodies shimmering in the moonlight, dancing languidly or lying around in the vegetation. Creamy white bear grass, mariposa lilies, and purple irises formed a bed around a large fallen tree overgrown with wild mushrooms. Sitting atop it all was a northern spotted owl watching sagely from across the clearing. Everything in me suddenly felt bright, as if I too possessed the warmth that I could feel emanating from everyone else, from the very earth beneath me. "Is this the afterlife?" I asked. Again, my sister laughed. "No, this is the before time, the beginning of everything." As we walked across the clearing, I realized all the people were women, nobody older or younger than 20. When we paused, some smiled warmly at me, others touched my hand or came to kiss me on the cheek. Colette mentioned some of their names: Hyacinth, Ivy, Juniper, Ember, Fern. "And I'm Cove." She placed her hand over my heart and said, "And you're Everly," meaning meadow. We're all a part of the earth, created from the elements. Here we return to that. The owl that had been sitting silently on the fallen tree trunk suddenly flapped its wings. With one fluid motion, it lifted itself up and came to perch on the branch closest to my shoulder. I looked into its eyes, and I knew, I have known for a very long time. "This is Eve," Cove said. There were no Adams in our Eden, no God or snakes or blame, no fall from grace, no newspaper clippings of young girls' wrangled bodies. All there ever was Eve and the earth and the beginning of time. She was our mother and ourselves. The tree of good and evil has always already fallen, overgrown with vegetation and wild mushrooms. We eat from her freely. Oh, rereading that just put me back in that heart space that I was in when I was 22 on my own in a different part of the world, experiencing so many things for the first time. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed writing it and reliving it again while reading it to you. I know this is a bit of a different episode, but I'm hoping to maybe do something like this once a month or once every few months where I can share more of my creative writing. And please, if you have any thoughts about this piece, any questions, I know it's a bit abstract. So if you do have any questions, please send me a message or leave it as a review. I would love to hear what this stirred in you. Thank you for listening. And I hope listening to this story made you feel like a little kid again, like somebody is reading you a bedtime story, or maybe while taking a bath or walking around the neighborhood. Whatever you're doing, wherever you are, I hope you feel at home right now. And if you're up for it, do something creative tonight. Write a story, paint a picture, doodle, go dancing. There can never be enough creativity in the world. And in my experience, creative expression is the number one way that I feel reconnected to myself and to life outside of a screen or outside of work, just to be reminded of how beautiful it is to be a human being. Anyway, thank you for listening along to this one. I'll see you next week. I hope you have an amazing weekend. And don't forget to get a little bit lost. That's where the magic finds you. Till next time.